Continuing on from it was a terrible intro, right? Okay. Hi. Thank you for being here. Hey, Godfather J6, so nice to see you. Thank you guys so much for popping in tonight. I know this was like completely random, and but I had been thinking about this all week, and I just wanted to go for it. And we had been talking about, hey, Tin Top, we had been talking about, I think, like, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago? We'd started talking about what's ahead. Like, we know that we're coming into hard times, um, food crises, um, you name it. Are there further lockdowns? We're having gas shortages, and even like the food crisis. This is something that is acknowledged by our governments, which should be kind of concerning and pretty telling, but it's also clear, like, if we look at food prices and then we look at the fact that there's such major formula shortages, and then the fact the food processing plants that are burning down, and just everything altogether is just a perfect storm. Add on top of that the fact that there might be a diesel shortage coming, and then tractors run on diesel, and the semi trucks and the highway run on diesel. You can kind of just see that it's a perfect storm happening. And I'd like to continue with these series and just talk on different, or touch on different points of preparedness. We talked about food security first time around. I'd love to talk about water security, and then we can just keep going through everything else, medical, you name it. We'll just touch on different topics every time. But before we go any further, I wanted to talk a little bit about spiritual preparation, and not just for the hard times, for what's ahead, but also for abundance. Like, being that we're in Hex, and that we're in Pulse Chain, and that we're in crypto, we're expecting an abundance coming to our way. But are you prepared for it? Which sounds silly. Like, why do you need to prepare for good times? But there really is like a mentality change that has to happen for a lot of us. And also, almost like we have to get our house in order before that happens. And how can we do that spiritually? And the thing with this is, it's coming from my perspective. My faith perspective is a Christian perspective, but I feel like this is something that could kind of, we can meet in the middle. If you don't agree with this, if you're like of another faith, I'm sure there's a lot of things we have in common on this. Or, like, even if you're an atheist, I'm sure there are different points on, in terms of mindset, that we can agree on here. So I thought it would be cool to just come on and discuss that with you guys tonight. So, hey, Avidian and my online ghost, really nice to see you all here. So thank you guys for coming in this kind of a little bit later than usual stream. And completely out of the blue, where I'm like, you know what, I feel like talking about this today. And I just want to also say, Crypto Heartbeat, I had caught a little bit of his stream this morning, and I think he was talking about something similar. So if you're not aware, I mean, I know you guys all know Crypto Heartbeat, but if you haven't seen yet, he's created a separate channel about Christianity and crypto. And I guess he just kind of hits it from all different directions, looking at this from a spiritual perspective, I guess maybe even how Christians can be in crypto. I'm still kind of exploring his content, but I am so excited for that. So I totally recommend going and subbing to that channel if you haven't done that yet. So I was thinking, I got this in the mail. It was like, one of those charity promos where they send you stuff in the mail, I guess, to try to guilt you into donating. Like, oh, maybe if we send them something, they'll feel bad. So I had gotten this in the mail, and you see this, it's like a tiny little coin recreation. And what it is it's a recreation of the widow's mite. So if you're familiar with the gospel, the Christian gospel, the New Testament of the Bible, there is the story where the widow comes to the temple and she gives her last mites. So she goes and she gives these coins. And, people kind of looked at it as like, oh, those are hardly worth anything. That's not going to make a difference to the temple. What is she doing? Because if you kind of, if you put it into today's terms, the value of what they were like, it was as if she like put a couple of Sacagawea coins down. It's probably about $2 worth. And people look at that like, oh, that's so ridiculous. That's not going to make a difference. But Jesus pointed out that to her, that was everything. That was all she had. And it was, and because of that, because she was willing to give what she had, that made her, sorry, my wording is poor on this, but it made her, it just, it made her all the more generous. And it really made a difference in God's eyes to see somebody who was willing to give up everything she had, even to the world, that it was something so small, but it showed her heart. And so when I got this in the mail and was thinking about that story, I thought about how it could apply to us in crypto, in terms of our spiritual preparation for abundance, the abundance that we're hoping comes our way. Hey, Mango Junkie, thanks for popping in. So, to if we're thinking about, like, think about, there's a mindset I think a lot of people have, like, oh, I don't have a lot now, but when I'm rich, I'm totally going to be giving, and I'm going to do all this stuff, and everybody's going to be blessed because of the riches that I've come into. But you have to start with the mindset before you even get to that point. Like, if you're not generous now, if you're not giving now, if you're not kind and charitable, if you don't do it when you have nothing or when you have less, because that mindset is instilled in you, you're not going to do it when you're rich. And I know that's something my mom always taught me. And it's something that always stuck with me, that, you have to have that, that it's all a mindset. And if you don't change that mindset properly, all of a sudden, when you come into money, it's not going to change then. If you're greedy when you don't have a lot, then you're going to be greedy when you have money. And I think we've all seen people like that. We've known people like that, and we say, "Oh, look at all this, all of this," and they can't even give a tiny bit. They don't even want to unclench their fist. And I saw this not too long ago in a town that's near me. I tweeted about it. That there's this town that I was in, and it's considered the second richest town in the United States. And a charity was outside, and they were collecting, and they were just getting, they were even just trying to be friendly and chat. Like, they weren't pushy about it. And people were just walking by. So all these like really rich people, they couldn't even give a buck, there wasn't very much in their box. And I was just blown away by it, because I'm like, look at this. These people, it would, for them to even take out a 20 would be nothing to them. And they can't even do that little bit. And I know some people talked about, like, oh, maybe it's the charity. That charity doesn't always have a good rep. But trust me, people in that town don't even know what that charity is. But it was just the mindset, the fact that you could walk by people like that. And that's because, you know what, if they weren't like that to begin with, if they came from nothing, then that was never going to change for them. So what did I expect? So that's always something I try to remember, even when it's hard, that you feel like you have nothing. It's still important to make that sacrifice. And something in my faith, is tithing. So it's where you take 10% of your income and you donate it to your church. And not like, in the sense of, I know that people like have this view of like, oh, these rich evangelical churches and these mega church pastors flying around in their jets. Like, that's a very small percentage. Most of the time when you are donating to your church like that, they are doing good things, or and other parts of it are going to expenses too. But most churches are doing good things and doing good work with that. So in the Bible, it it says, bring your tithe into the storehouse, God says. And also in the Bible, it says like you're not supposed to test God. Like, that's kind of a disrespectful thing to do. But this is the one time in the Bible that God says to test him on this. He says, bring your tithe into the storehouse. And I'm paraphrasing this. I don't remember the exact thing, but he's like, I will bless you abundantly. And to test him, he says he'll like pour out the blessings on you if you can show that act of faith, if you can show that act of charity. And that's something that, that kind of comes back to that whole giving when you have less. Um, and then, it puts you into a better mindset when you have more, because sometimes that's scary to think that, like, how am I going to make my bills if because it's also supposed to be first fruits. So like, as soon as you get that paycheck back, you just give it back to God in one way or another. Some people choose to tithe to a charity or a ministry or something like that, especially if, like, maybe you're in between churches. But so, like, with your tithe, sometimes, yeah, it's scary. Like, I hardly have enough to pay my bills. If I am taking this 10% and I am giving it back to God, how is everything going to work? But God makes that promise, and He says, test Him on this. And for me, it's always been wild, because a lot of times I'm like, the fact that I'm taking this out of my paycheck, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how the rest of my bills are going to get paid, but somehow at the end of the month, everything works out. Everything's paid. And and I think that, for me, that's an example of God's blessing. I don't question it. I'm like, somehow everything stretched and everything lasted. And also, I find that I as time goes on, the more faithful I am in that, the more just financial blessings do come. It's pretty wild that where the times where I've forgotten to do that, or just never got around to that charitable act, that I struggle more over time financially. But then as time goes on, the more I'm doing it and the more I'm just faithful and not even thinking, like, it's just an automatic thing. I don't even think about it. I just do it. The more blessings happen, whether it be through crypto or through jobs or just anything here and there. It's pretty amazing. So I personally have seen it in my life, and I highly recommend it to everyone. If you are, like, on the what's it called? If you're on the line trying to decide what to do, I forget the saying. Just go for it, try it, and see what happens. And coming back to that too, like, when we're talking about mindset, if you don't give when you have less, you're not going to give when you have more. I remember I was one time discussing it with some man who is pretty wealthy, and wasn't talking in, like, oh, this is what I do, because also don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing, which we'll get back to in a second. But I'm just talking about, like, I was like, oh, I think everybody should take, 10% of their income and donate it to charity and this and that. And he was, like, so taken aback. He goes, no, 10%, absolutely not. Especially if you're young, you can't be giving away that much. Almost like you need to establish your life. No, it was like he balked at the idea of 10%. Like, it was way too much. So I'm like, here is this man that's so wealthy, and 10% was, like, such a shocking number. So, like, yeah, like you said, it just comes back to mindset. If you don't train yourself in that mindset, it's never going to get better. um and yeah, that comes back to that whole, like, and like I said, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Because also, when we're doing this, you're not doing it to glorify yourself. You're doing it to glorify God. So, we in this faith, in my faith, and I'm sure in a lot of other faiths, when you do this, it's not to be like, hey, everybody, look what I'm doing. I just, I'm so charitable, and I just did this for this person, and I did that for that. Yeah, sometimes it's cool and it's inspiring to share. Maybe it's appropriate in a certain situation to talk about something. But for the most part, when people do that, and people walk around doing that, they're doing it for their own glory. They're not doing it for the benefit of the other person, and they're not doing it to glorify God. So really, when you're doing these things, these charitable acts, it should be a quiet thing, and it should be because you want to do it for the other person, or you want to do it to honor God. And those really should be the main reasons this happens. And again, like, this all comes back to preparation for spiritual abundance. I feel like these are, like, things that you need to have in line before you come into the windfall of whatever's coming with pulse and hacks and everything. Like, for me, these are, the priorities that I feel like everybody should have in order in one way or another. You don't necessarily have to follow the same tenets of my faith in this, but, like, I'm sure, even if you're an atheist, like, a lot of these things make sense, to do good and to be charitable when you have less. before you get into the position where you have more. I mean, I think that's something we could all agree on. So, hey, R23 and David Lee, nice to see you guys. Oh, and thank you so much. Yeah, congrats on 500. Thank you. I am, yeah, not to steer this back to me, but I just wanted to thank you all, by the way, for the 500 subs. That was really, really cool and really exciting. And I'm glad that, that I could be here hanging out with you guys and that, yeah, and just talking about anything. It's been so fun. So thank you. And I'm sorry if this is like just rambly, but I just wanted to kind of, I wanted to just hit on this because there's a lot of weirdness in crypto, and I don't mean like hex or pulse, but even like, you look beyond into like, those crypto bros and those influencers, and they want to show off everything that they're doing. And they're dropping, I don't know, $1 million on cars and everything. And they're just living this lifestyle of excess. And there's nothing wrong with having fun and there's nothing wrong with enjoying life, but you wonder, like, you've come into so much, but when are you going to do good with it? Or what is the purpose of coming into so much if you can't do good with it? Like, to me, like, that seems pointless. Like, what's the point of having an amazing car if I can't help my friends, my family, or some stranger? Like, it's just, who cares? Who cares? It doesn't, it starts not to make a difference having money if you can't do anything nice, or at least for me, I mean, and I'm sure most of you guys in Hex and Pulse feel the same way, because because like I always say this, Hex is such an amazing community. It truly is the best community I've seen in crypto and the most generous community. So I really do feel like we're all on the same page. Um, that we are all, yeah, on the same page with this. Like, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. You all are awesome. You all are generous. But it's just, there's just some stuff I'm thinking about. And I'm kind of want to think out loud with you guys. And oh shoot, that was leading into something else I wanted to say. I started remembering it and then I just lost it as I was talking. It's terrible. Yeah, exactly, Tin Top. Even a small act of charity can have an enormous impact. So just like the widow and her last mites in the temple. So even if financially it didn't have a ton of impact, it meant something big, because her small, because that it was everything to her. And look, her name is reverberated throughout history and it teaches us. But even, yeah, the smallest act of charity can have an enormous impact, even in our everyday lives, even if it's not, um, there's so many ways to be charitable, even if it's not a financial charity, even if it's just your time or your kindness. You smile at somebody who's having an awful day, you don't know what kind of huge impact, that could have made on somebody. Or somebody, you buy somebody a meal just for fun, when people are like, oh, the pay it forward thing, I'm going to pay for the person behind me in line. And I'm not talking through that about that drive-through thing, because that's, I've heard, challenging for the people working. But sometimes I've been in a store and a person will be like, oh, I'll pay for your iced tea, I gotcha. Like something like that. It's true, you don't know what a person's going through. And you hear stories, like you hear stories of people like saying, oh, I was gonna, I was planning to kill myself, and then but this person who I didn't know just said this kind thing to me, and that changed everything. Like I heard a story recently about this guy saying, I was going to throw myself in front of the subway platform, and some woman just recognized, the look on my face, and she said, don't do it. Something like that is a small act of charity. All she was saying was, just don't. And she saved his life. And, and here he was writing an article about it, because that woman had such an impact on him that he says whenever he feels like that again, he just always remembers her. So yeah, the smallest things have an enormous impact, and charity isn't necessarily money. It could be your time. It could be a smile. It could be anything, words. It could be even donating material things that, you want to get rid of some things and you think it could help somebody. You might not have money to donate, but here, this winter coat, it doesn't fit me anymore, but it's, it's still nice. It could, it could save a life. You hear so many people dying in the cold during polar vortexes. So, you never know. It's so true. So, trying to think what it was that I was losing. Sorry, guys. Let me just check my notes a second. Um, oh yeah. So, and it comes back to whom much is given, much is expected. I forget where it says that in the Bible, but also like it's kind of like in Spider-Man where what did they say with much power comes much responsibility. I think that was inspired, by the Bible. So to whom much is given, much is expected. So if God blesses you abundantly, you know, he's going to expect something out of you. He's going to expect you to do good in some way, through your deeds or through the way you live or through the way you minister to people, like it comes at a cost. It's not just a free gift, you have to be a decent person and do good in in response. And I don't think that's a bad trade. It's nice to be a good human being, it feels good. And not in the sense that it feels good in you know, oh, I'm so full of myself. It makes me feel like an amazing person. But like, doing good takes your mind off of yourself. And people that are constantly self-focused, it puts yourself in a not a nice mental state. So being able to take that focus off of yourself puts you into a better headspace. So Kanye, what do you mean? What I think of Kanye? I don't know much about Kanye, to be honest. I hope his heart is in the right place. It seems like it sometimes, but then he also kind of seems, I don't know, very narcissistic too. So he's hard to figure out. Um, but like I said, I can just hope he's in the right place and pray for him too. Um, this community is like no other. I hope to get to thank all for the love prayers. No, so true. I'm with you. Like we truly are unique in a good way. You could be unique in a bad way, but I really do think, yeah, we're unique in a good way. And yeah, and I like so love prayers. Um, you know what? Here's a good way to thank everybody for that. And you know what? I like that. We should all be praying for each other in this community. Because that's another thing you can do. A small act of charity, even if you don't have anything material, if you don't have the time, something as small as praying for each other makes a huge difference in someone's life. And then, you can pray for somebody and they could never, and you don't have to tell them. But sometimes when you reach out to somebody and you say, I'm praying for you, like when you're on the receiving end of that, it's something that feels really nice. It really puts you, and I feel like it puts you in community with people, which is so important. So, oh yeah, another Kanye question. Yeah, I like I said, I don't know a ton about Kanye and what his deal is. So I kind of I'm wary. I hope his heart is in the right place or at least getting there. But yeah, there's some things that seem off. Like his version of church that's all like centered around his brand is weird. But I'm like, I don't know, maybe everybody's in a different place. So maybe he's just, at the beginning of his faith journey. And I hope it develops into something good, like what can we do but pray for him. I definitely would pray for Kanye because he's somebody in the spotlight. So, you would hope that somebody in the spotlight could hopefully be a good reflection of Christ, or at least plant some seeds for Christ. So, do you think you ever communicated with God or a higher power? Yeah. So I am a Christian. So I do believe that when you pray, it's a direct link to God. So I believe that I communicate with God or a higher power. And it's not like, it's not like this, oh, I hear God back audibly. Like that's not some people do. And I think some prophets do too. I don't know enough about that way of how people communicate with God because I've heard people actually I have a friend who was about to commit suicide and he said he was on his knees about to shoot himself and he heard the audible voice of God. And I hope no, I think he's open with the story. He doesn't mind sharing it. And he heard God's voice say, call out his name and say, where are you? And that just immediately stopped him, and he turned his life around, and he is an amazing human being that does so much good in the world. So some people hear God, but a lot of times, like when you hear God, it's almost like a nudging in your heart. It's different than your conscience. It's and you just see God in everything, and you feel it's almost like, hindsight 2020, like you see different things come together in your life, and then all of a sudden you realize that everything seemed perfectly orchestrated. So that's more like how it is for me. It's kind of hard to explain unless you're in it. Um, but I'm sorry if that's not a great answer. Um, so you think you did once, but it wasn't with words. It was through feelings. It was a very weird experience. Yes, so exactly. So like when I say you feel them in your heart, it's like, yeah, you've sometimes it's like you are overcome by an overwhelming sense of peace or an overwhelming sense of joy. Um, it happens in so many different ways for different people, depending on the circumstances. Sometimes it's a nudging, sometimes it's a guidance. And I guess it could kind of feel like your conscience, but not quite. So yeah, so you know what? It sounds like, yeah, you did experience communication from God. I would think so. That sounds like it. Sounds like on target. Yeah, exactly. A nudging. So yeah, and so which leads me into my second thing. So that was spiritual preparation for abundance. But since a lot of that is mindset, we could also turn that around into spiritual preparation for hard times ahead. Like I think it's pretty clear that we're going into bad times. Like my parents heard today, Department of Homeland Security said something like there's violence up ahead, which is not surprising. And so it's just at every turn we seem to be going into a bad period of time. And like if you think about in 2019, how much the world has changed since then. If you went back and you told yourself in 2019 that all this stuff was going to happen and that we were going to get locked down and that things were going to get forced and people on other people and people were going to lose their job and people couldn't travel, like that would have sounded insane. It would have sounded like something that would happen far off in the future. But all of a sudden it happened, and it happened in such a short amount of time. Our world has changed so much. So I don't think that's like far off, like for that to happen again, something huge in a short amount of time, something world changing. And it seems like, we're going through that, we're going towards that. Whether it be famine, pestilence, violence, whatever it may be, something big we're headed is it just seems undeniable. So knowing that, you know, adopting this mindset also does help you through the hard times, because even in the hard times, you're going to need to help people. You're still going to have opportunities for charity too. And hold on, I want to go back to the live chat. It's harder to channel good, but easier to channel evil. That's why you have to be careful with things like tarot cards and the Ouija board. I agree 100%. It's like, what is it, like the rules of entropy or something, that it takes more energy for order, and that disorder happens very easy. And I think the same thing happens with evil. It's so easy to fall into evil, even if you're not careful, because it's around us. And it's interesting because, it used to be very clear, like, what things are evil and what things to go around. But today it seems just so hidden and so buried, and you just and it's everywhere, and things sometimes that seem innocuous are actually pretty heavy and pretty bad, like the Ouija board. Like they sell that with the game, with, like, the board games, right? It seems like a kid's thing. Kids play with it all the time. But, so something that looks pretty innocent isn't, because you can channel things. And I've heard of so many bad things happening through Ouija boards, because really, I mean, and this is a whole other tangent I can go into, but I won't. But like when you're talking with spirits and you're communicating with the dead, so for my faith, like You can't. So it's usually demonic. It's usually something dark that's trying to fool you, because there's a belief that there's a void between heaven and earth. You can't communicate with the dead, so really, somebody's posing as your grandma on the Ouija board. It's not your grandma. It's something demonic trying to fool you, to pull you in, to make problems for you. But look at that. It looks innocent. It looks like a board game, but here all these dark things that can happen through it. You can have possessions, you can have hauntings, and that's like a whole other topic of conversation that I won't get into now, because I could probably talk for hours about that. And same thing, tarot cards. Have you noticed all of a sudden astrology is like super popular and everywhere? And I know a lot of people want to argue whether astrology is bad or good or whatever, but my faith is like basically like steer clear. It's another thing to fool you. It's another thing that has connections to darkness, but it's masquerading as something pretty innocent. And I forgot where I was going with that, but I'll leave it at that for now. But so fear changes things pretty quickly. No, so are we talking about sorry, I'm a little behind in this chat. So we talking about fear in the hard times? Because if we are going toward hard times, which it really seems like we are, you can imagine how quickly society can flip, because we already saw how society flipped and completely changed with the fear that came from COVID. So can you imagine the fear that comes from food insecurity and violence and whatever else may be coming our way? I guess pestilence is that illness, right? If monkeypox becomes a thing, or they want to make it a thing or whatever. Yeah, once fear comes into the picture, then you truly do end up on the verge of societal or civilization type of collapse. And that's why I wanted to talk about spiritual preparation today. So we want to be prepared for the good, but we also want to be prepared for when things go bad, because that's when it's most important to really have a solid faith, a solid rock to hold on to. And not that it doesn't matter in the good times. It still should matter in the good times. I have a friend who wrote a play, and one of the characters in the play, gets a bill in the mail and goes, "Thank you, Jesus." And people reacted like, "Oh, did you get a check?" And and she was like, "No, it's a bill, but you got to thank God in the bad times as well as the good times." So it's always important to be thankful for what you have, even when things are great. You still need that foundation, you need that rock. And you know what? When things go bad, it's still so important to be thankful. And that's something that hits me a lot. Like sometimes if when I've if all of a sudden I can't make a bill, or I have a sudden bill and I'm panicking, or not panicking, but I'm pretty laid back, but kind of like concerned about it. Instead of being upset, I also try to remember, you know what? Thank you, Jesus, that I've been able to pay so far, or that, I've been so financially blessed so far. This is just a blip. It's a moment in time, and that things will be better soon, and that earth is just my temporary home. There's so much to be thankful even in the bad times. But I'm going to catch up on the chat right now. Oh, I am behind, aren't I? Hold on a second. There's also good to be seen out there if you can see the forest through the trees. Exactly. You know what? I feel like we're living in dark times, and we're heading into even darker times. And I feel like it hits a lot of people hard, the whole like quote unquote being black pilled or whatever. But and it's hard if you all of a sudden are waking up to the fact that, that the people that, the governments that we thought are on our side aren't, and they're actually out for themselves, and that they really don't care about regular people like us, and that the world isn't what we thought it was. When a lot of people that wake up to that, find it really, like, it's really jarring and really depressing for some people. But I kind of keep that mindset of, what, there's still good. There's still people out there being good. You can still make good in your own life. You can always, even in the midst of insanity, you can find the good. And I'm going to try to just live my life in a way that I can enjoy it and be happy, and in a way I can be proud of. So is always good to be found in every circumstance. I am totally on the same page as you. It is now. Thank you. Um, so yeah. I can't put some of these things up on the screen before I get in trouble with YouTube, but yeah, I hear you in these comments totally. Um, a lot of fear being put out with the pandemic, a lot of fear porn. Um, So when you were communicating with God, you got kicked out of that stage in meditation. You got kicked out when you weren't humble enough and thinking how cool this is. Yeah, so it's almost like, and I'm going to hit on some thoughts of meditation in a second, but it's like it's almost like in acting. You have to be in the moment with acting, and then when you start kind of stepping outside of yourself and thinking about what you're doing, then you lose it. It's just you get thrown off. It looks fake. You're not grounded past a point. So yeah. So when you're doing something spiritual, yeah, if you are like being like, "Oh, wow," you kinda like, "Look how great I am, look how cool I am." When you're bringing glory to yourself, then it becomes a problem. You kind of it throws you it throws you into not a good space when you're doing something for your own glory and not for others and not for God. Yeah, I personally, I don't participate in meditation, so I can't speak to meditation exactly, because there's a couple of different when we're talking about what you can open doors to spiritually. Like when we were talking about Ouija boards and tarots, um, I subscribe to certain beliefs that there's certain types of meditation that are very dangerous and harmful. So I don't do the meditation thing. I don't know much about it. I try to avoid it because of that, because I don't want to open doors to the other realm with certain types of meditation. But no, I hear where you're coming from, and I gotcha. Yeah. No, I agree. When you start doing something and looking at yourself and elevating yourself is when it becomes a problem. Um, Cannibalism happens in a week or two. I don't know if we would get to that point very quickly, but I think, when things start breaking down, it's going to be fast. I think they say you have 72 hours before everyone realizes that help isn't coming, and that's when things really start breaking down. But I wonder if it would take longer for cannibalism, or if people just wouldn't have that in them. Like, because I don't know. Shoot, I had a thought on that. Oh yeah, so even if you look at like the basis of morals in the country, and that just things are deteriorating and that people are stepping away from faith, and even if you're not a person of faith and you don't believe that that faith is necessary, but even I'm sure you can still see that there's like a slippage of just values and morals, and people are just like especially lately you're seeing so many videos of people just attacking each other for no reason. I saw a video of um some people like brutally beating a woman for her purse. Okay, that wasn't for a reason. They were trying to steal her purse, but it's just like people, the violence is at such an extreme. And you kind of look at it and you're like, you know what? Well, it's kind of the slipping of morals and values. If people had an ethical code, a moral code of code of values, and things like this won't happen. So if we're going into hard times and people don't have that basis, whether it be faith or just some sort of ethical code in them, yeah, then we're going to head to pretty bad things like, sorry, I'm pointing to my screen, to pretty bad things like this, like cannibalism and everything else. Um, sorry, I'm so behind, guys. Maybe I should just hold on, skim it. But Hexicans need an escape plan out of their cities. Yeah, get out of Dodge. I think. Oh, we should cover that in one of these weeks. Bugging in versus getting out of Dodge. Because you can die on the road. It's pretty dangerous once things go down to leave. You're best off getting out ahead of time. And some people believe that, oh, you're not standing your ground if you're fleeing your state or your city or whatever, and you're going ahead and buying something in the country and living in the country in advance. But I don't think so. I think some of these places are too far gone. You just need to get out of danger, because some of these cities are pretty freaking scary to walk into right now in the United States. Yeah, so if you have the ability to get out of a major city, I would. If I had the ability to, I would. Yeah, totally. If I, I always think that if pulse chain moons, like I want to disappear somewhere in the wilderness. I always thought I could never leave like these more populated regions, but now I'm seeing the benefits to doing that in terms of safety. Though you have to be careful because you can get into some regions that are very desolate and you end up more in danger than you would be in a more crowded area. So you really have to do your research when you do that. Um, yeah, in about a week, people start doing the zombie thing. Oh gosh, I hope not. But I think we are going into a time of food riots. Um, yeah, exactly. Like if Pulse Jane Moons, start exploring your options to live in a safer area if you're in an area that's not safe. Because if the area you're in is already problematic, then it's not going to be getting better anytime soon. Though I have to say I'm kind of in an insulated suburb where things are still very well and very safe here. But then you have the Golden Horde issue. What happens when you have that movement out of the cities? So yeah, I think we should do that in another episode. Get out of Dodge, bugging in, and the Golden Horde. Um, Thank you, Crypto Jack. I appreciate that. Meet Amish people and learn their ways. Great resource. Yes, skills are so important. Even if you don't have the money to go out and buy a house, yeah, it's totally important to be storing food. Grab a few extra cans if you can, and throw them in your in your pantry whenever you go to the store. But also, you need skills. We are so lacking in skills lately. Like nobody knows how to do anything. Me included. I don't have a ton of skills. I realized, or I have skills, but they're not really applicable in a bad scenario, in a grid down scenario. So getting skills, gosh, we have so many different topics we can talk about each week, but skills could be a whole nother topic. Actually, Meetup.com is a great way to meet like-minded people and to find groups where you can learn skills like really inexpensively. I would find a way to learn how to can. Canning in glass jars and food preserving, because you can find some great sales on produce and start storing away stuff. Now, if you don't want to, go the canned food route or any other, or the dry food route. So, yeah, exactly. I would honestly, I personally, I would avoid meditating, especially if it scares you. Sometimes there might be a reason for that, and I think there's other ways of you can be meditative, contemplative without getting to that point. If you want to meditate on Christ, or meditate on something you're reading, meditate in your heart in a sense. But I think when you start getting into certain ones, yeah, you do get close to things, because they're saying it like it opens the door in your life. And for me, I'm like, we don't need to open any doors. Yeah, exactly. Bad doors. Yeah. Stay away from those doors. Um, yeah, there's some really scary types of meditation out there. So, um, yes, 100%. Buy a foraging book for your region. There's also some apps that are pretty informative. I like to use Picture This when I'm gardening. But, I'm sure there's always room for error, but Picture This kind of like helps you get a better idea of what's in your yard, and then you could kind of like take that further, go on some search engines and study it. My my dad found a foraging book that he loves, so I'll have to find a way to post that. Honestly, I'm looking into making a website so I can drop all these resources in one place. I just look, it's a little complicated making a website if you're not used to it. So I just have to figure that out. But yeah, he found a really excellent foraging book on Amazon, and we found out that there's a bunch of foraging classes around here. So if you go on Course Horse, if you or just like search foraging classes near me, they're relatively inexpensive. Or if you have some farms in the areas that do foraging classes, my sister and her fiance just found a foraging class on a local organic farm. So totally take classes. That way you have an expert there that you can ask questions about, so that you're not accidentally misidentifying something from a book. But definitely have those resources in place. If we get hit by an EMP, or a fake EMP, meaning the grid shuts down. Oh, look at those Russians. They launched an EMP at us. Meanwhile, somebody else was shutting down the grid. through other means. But we get, if our grid gets shut down, or if it happens through an EMP, and all your internet resources are gone, and you can't even turn on your computer, in the sense of, let's say the grid goes down and you can't access internet. That's one thing. And okay, you can check your stuff in your hard drive if you want to store info on your hard drive. But if you get hit by an EMP, a nuke that gets launched at a certain altitude so that it knocks out all the transformers, and knocks out electrical equipment, then you can't turn on your computer at all. And all that data is gone, unless you make a Faraday cage. But who knows if the Faraday cage works until it actually happens. So that's why it's so important to have resources in, like, a solid, real book, tangible book that you have on hand. So thank you so much. It is now for bringing that up. So I think I'm almost caught up. Yeah, I'm almost caught up. But thank you for all the chatting back and forth. I love reading this. Yep. Yeah, the 3 Bs, right? We're not going into bad times. The system is just fronting chaos to compel people to be reasonably prepared for crisis situations. So, are you saying the system is working for good, just so that we're reasonably prepared? Because I come from the perspective that the system does not work in our favor, that it only benefits the elites. So regular people like us, they don't care about, and we're pretty much disposable to them. So personally, I don't think they're trying to teach us to do good things. So I think we need to be prepared for whatever comes our way, because we're disposable people to them. Your parents can after every harvest. It's funny watching mom and dad, because they tease each other while doing that. Oh, that's cute. Um, so your dad feeds a juicer and your mom screws the cans every year. So perfect. You have the ability to learn from them, or maybe you already knew how to do it. But if you don't know how to do it, learn from them, and then maybe you can, like, do a nice thing, a charitable thing, and teach other people. Put some videos out there, or just invite people over your house and show them how to can. Because we really need to get back to these old-fashioned skills. And just skills in general that aren't laptop skills. Error. I know I said something funny, but I usually don't sound that New York. Yeah, I my brain gets all jumbled at night. Oh, thank you. That's too nice of you. So if we stay in the city, cannibalism is an option. If you're alone in the middle of nowhere, it takes a whole season to grow food. Yeah, so it's yeah, if you're in the middle of nowhere, yeah, it does take a whole season to grow food. So that's why it's good to have that basis. And the thing is, if you're not used to farming, it's not something you can just all of a sudden learn. So it's good to start just finding little skills now. Even if you live in an apartment and you can just garden, and you have a terrace and you can garden on a terrace, go for it. It's excellent to be able to learn any way you can. But yeah, it's like being in the cities is dangerous, but also being out in the country. I listened to this podcast where somebody was talking about the Argentinian financial collapse and what it was like, and they said that when you were in the country, it was dangerous because people were going out into the country and knowing they had money or supplies or whatever, and purposely going out there and victimizing people. So it's like, what is the answer? But these were people who were, like, really remote in the country they were messing with. So I think that's why it's good to do your research now and to be ready, so that when you do have the ability to do something else, you know what your options are, you know where you want to be, or if you want to move, you know what the right area is for you. New Hampshire is very interesting, by the way. Freest state in the country, so that's an option. But then it gets really cold if you're not used to it. Mhm. Sorry, my iced tea. Yeah, I guess if you're into hunting, I'm not. So, am I gonna have to go vegetarian when things go bad? I mean, yeah. But no, it's true. So many places are overpopulated with deer too. If you know how to hunt, if you know how to gut, and if you know how to preserve, keep a lot of salt on hand, then in certain areas, yeah, you do have an abundance of wildlife and protein to eat. Um, Yeah, exactly. Critical info should be on paper. And, because we're talking about spiritual preparation, get a Bible on paper. Do your research if you want and see which edition works best for you. You know what I mean? Which translation or start with the NIV. The NIV is the one I grew up reading. I know some people have a lot of issues with the translation and don't like it, but I think it's a good starter one. Yeah, otherwise, I'm sure there's a lot of websites that can guide you to that. But I just wanted to throw that in there since this is a spiritual preparation episode. Um, you like when channels are closed? You like this? I like this. Yeah, because it's like we're all sitting together in a room or a restaurant and just chatting and on the same page with each other. I like that. Um, Yeah, yeah, but exactly. So, like, Tomas, even though you're saying maybe they're just trying to prepare us for what's coming, um, you know what, I'm on that same page as you guys. It is now, and Insidious Tomas that you know what, yeah, we're strong. We will prevail. We'll get through it. We just need to be aware. It's important to be aware. It's important to be aware and awake to what's coming. Um, so microgreens. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, microgreens. So it's really interesting that you should bring that up because I saw somebody showing this. Because I don't know. Okay, so when you talk about like vegetable sprouts and microgreens, are those the same thing? Because I saw this thing where you put seeds into a mason jar, and instead of screwing on a top, it's like a little screen that you screw on, and it sprouts the bean sprouts and whatever sprouts that you want to eat or put on a salad or whatever really quickly, and it's super nutritious. So it's also important to look at what food packs the best nutritional punch for what you're eating, that it's not completely empty and devoid of anything, you know what I mean? That you're not just eating Fruit Loops, that you're able to get some nutrition that's packing a punch in a small package too is pretty important. So hey Drix, nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. Okay, so you're plant-based. Yeah. I've gone back and forth with being plant-based. It's been interesting. I was just saying to my mom, I'm like, I think I looked better when I was vegan. Like I looked slimmer and everything, but my brain feels better when I've been doing a lot of animal products. For years, I avoided like most animal products 'cause I also just wasn't into them. But I've been trying to intentionally incorporate that into up my protein levels. And I'm like, wow, my brain feels amazing. So I'm like, there has to be a balance between the two where yeah. So still trying to figure it out. Everybody's different. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Right. There's a common ground in that. So non-GMO seeds will be like gold in the future. So here's the thing for anyone that doesn't know, when with GMOs, besides the fact that we don't know what GMOs do in our body, there's some thought of it's fine, it's still the same plant. The DNA is just slightly altered. But then if you look at like ancestrally what we've been eating as we've been for however long we've been humans, we're used to eating certain things. We're not used to eating this food that with its DNA slightly altered. So we don't know how that corresponds to illness. But then the scientists like to say, oh, it's completely safe and it helps with food efficiency and we can feed the world and the world won't be starving, which that is total BS because we can totally feed the world as is. It's just politics is why people starve. We have the tech, but the thing with GMOs is you can alter seeds to the point that when the plant grows, it doesn't produce seeds that you can plant the next generation for. So or like they have certain patents on seeds. I believe Monsanto does, where besides not being allowed to save seeds and plant them, some plants are just like have had their have had their DNA changed to the point where you can't save the seeds and plant them for the next season. They just don't work. So that is one of the many reasons why it's really important to have non-GMO seeds. First of all, because we don't know the health effects of GMOs, and second of all, because so that when the season is over, you can dry those seeds, you can preserve them in whichever way you preserve seeds, which I still need to learn, and then you can use them for the next season. That's why also heirloom varieties are important, because the heirloom varieties, they're heirlooms, they're not GMOs, and that they have that ability to do that. Yeah, there we go. Greens. I can't talk. Sorry, guys. Pack a great punch. Yeah. So do your research and find what's gonna pack the best nutritional punch on a budget, but also in space. If you don't have much like space to store things in, like seeds, greens, sprouts, they don't take up a lot of space. So, if you're doing apartment living, you can save up a lot of that, have a ton of nutrients around, and you haven't filled your, apartment to the brim with food, and there's still room to move. Yeah, I'm hungry too. Now I think it's too late for me to eat. Um, yeah, McDonald's contains chemicals never before seen in human nutrition. And then you have to look at that. It's like, is that corporate greed, or do people want us sick because all the industries are in bed with each other? And then if we're sick, then that helps the pharmaceutical industry. But I won't get into a pharmaceutical industry rant. Besides the fact that I think there's a lot of cures out there, but it's not profitable to cure things. It's maintenance meds are where a lot of their profits come from. But it's another story. Yeah, Monsanto, man, when you look into Monsanto, completely evil. Comes back to that same thing like McDonald's. Is it just greed, or is it the fact that somebody wants you dead? I don't know. Yeah, exactly. That was one of the things that I was going to bring up and I forgot. Yeah, GMOs are banned in Europe. Europe decided that GMOs were shady enough that nobody's allowed to eat them. Meanwhile, we're allowed to eat them here. And a ton of ingredients that are banned in Europe, we're allowed to eat here. So something to think about. That's very concerning. So in the time of the Bible, being self-sufficient was thought of as a necessity of daily life. You ate seasonal food and stored up for the winter. Yes. And I believe there's a verse, I can't remember it exactly where it's at, but that it talks about the ants that are working every day and saving things up, that there's value in that there's merit in working and being in taking care of yourself and being self-sufficient in that. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Like food security, it does come back to spirituality, because that is looked at as God's provision, that God was able to provide enough for you to store up and to be ready. So it truly all is linked together. So there's an epidemic of farmers because the GMO. Yeah, you know what? There's farming in America has become this really sad industry where they're really pushing, like, big corporate farmers are pushing the small farmers out, and small farmers aren't getting yield, or even when they are getting yield, they're priced out of the market where they've done so much work. But because the market is flooded by vegetables from corporate farms, that now they can't appropriately price the stuff that they're bringing to market, and they're making like hardly anything for their work. So really, and I think, like, but again, back to things being intentional, it seems intentional. It seems like there's a push, just like how big business pushed out little businesses, Walmart pushed out the little guy. It's the same exact thing happening in farming. There's actually this really crazy, oh my gosh, and I forget the name of it. I think there's a place in Kentucky, and I think JD Vance was going to be on the board of it, but didn't end up being. So, and I bring that up because maybe if you search using his name and using farming, it'll come up. But it's this ginormous farming warehouse that's supposed to be produce so much that it covers half the country's food or something extreme. And when you look at it, it's kind of scary because you're going, oh, one person is controlling that much food in the country. And it comes back to control and what they could do with it. Oh, and if you kind of make it scarce, what then happens? It becomes, so there's a lot of interesting things in terms of control going on with farming. We can only feed the world currently if they all go plant-based. For a standard American diet, we would need 5 planets. Do your own research. Oh yeah, no, totally. So yeah, I'm so sorry. So when I was thinking it in my brain, I was picturing farming and crops. Like we do have the crops to feed the world. I wasn't including animals in it, but yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, because like I'm sure we can agree to disagree. I'm kind of on like both sides when it comes to plant-based versus animal-based, but it's the yeah, it's way easier, I think, to grow to shoot, but there's negatives too. I'm trying not to get into a big debate about this, so maybe I'll just skip it because this could be like its own show on its own because there are certain crops that are also very damaging to bees and everything. So, but if you do it in the right way, if we're just talking about just generalities, you could feed the world with the crops that we have. We have enough. So much of it gets thrown away because of corruption and corporate greed and everything. But we produce enough plants and vegetables and everything to be able to feed the world. There's no reason that somebody should be starving. If there's a drought going on in a certain area, we have the technology, planes to bring stuff over. So when people are starving, that's a corporate issue, that's a government issue. A lot of corrupt governments that take advantage of natural resources but don't help its own people. So it's yeah, it's kind of its own can of worms that is pretty disturbing when you start deep diving into that one. But so yeah, another thing, Bill Gates is, when we talk about corporate farming trying to take over, Bill Gates is buying up a ton of farmland, which is pretty scary. If you look at what Bill Gates and his foundation has done in other continents in the world. They have a history of some nefarious activities. I'm not even talking the pandemic. I'm even talking pre-pandemic. On top of that, there's also a lot of Chinese companies, or is it the Chinese government, or maybe it's both, buying up a ton of farmland. So you have this massive buying up of farmland. And there's also something in place that's happening, and I forget who's doing it, whether it's corporations or the government itself. I think it might be the government, where they're paying farmers not to farm. And maybe under the guise of, oh, it's healing the land or whatever. But no, but like they are doing this to a lot of farmers, saying, okay, this is how much you make every year off of the stuff you farm. Okay, we're gonna give you double. Just don't do anything at all. Nothing at all. And we will pay you off to do double, which becomes problematic because then that brings our food supply down. And then you look at those three factors together: Bill Gates buying up farmland, Chinese firms and Chinese government buying up our farmland, and the government paying people not to farm. It's not good. It becomes a control of food, a takeover of food happening. So yeah, we kind of touched on on food security with the first stream, but maybe we should just talk about the issues going on with food in the world and the control of food. Man, that could be its own topic. There's so much all of us could talk about, right? So many perspectives here that I think we all share. Yeah, I mean, when you start looking at the history of him and what he's done in other countries, there's other countries that I think have banned him and his foundation from working in their country because of the stuff that's happened. Because the thing is, a lot of people like Bill Gates and the Bill Gates Foundation go into these third world countries under the guise of helping them, and they're actually doing experimentation, and it's not. It's not a conspiracy. Like they have run clinical trials on people. Basically, a lot of people go into African countries and they use it like a testing ground. Like When is that ever okay? You're going and, to some of the poorest people in the world, and you're gonna be testing things on him. So, a lot of these countries are like, "No, thank you. We don't want you in here," and rightfully so. So that's another thing that gets me fired up of what these corporations and quote unquote charities are doing in these, I'm sorry, third world isn't the proper term, developing nations. Is and how they're taking advantage of them, and the fact that everybody turns a blind eye to it, I mean, that should give everybody goosebumps. Yeah, I mean, talk about treating people as expendable. That's what they're doing in these countries. So, yeah, the mysterious fires of food plants around the country. One is like, "Oh, shoot." Then 2 would be like, "Oh, shoot," again. But then 3, you go, "Something's weird. Why did 3 processing plants burn down? Oh, 5. Oh, 8 now? And then what is it, 10? Now we're over 10? Okay, something's up." Because we don't magically have food processing plants explode or have things happen every year. They wanna blame it on some sort of industrial gas or whatever is happening in these things. It would happen all the time. But now it's happened to so many all in the same year is I think yeah, it's very suspicious. And I don't think anybody believes that it's random, but nobody's talking about it. And now it's gone beyond the food processing plants. And then now it's an actual eggplant that it happened to. There was an explosion or a fire at an eggplant. So if you look at it, it's like it's attacks from every side. It's the corporate takeover of agriculture, and then it's the destruction of the food processing plants. And then if you look at the baby formula shortage, that was the FDA shutting down one for supposedly one death, but I think they ended up finding no problems, but yet they were never allowed to open again. Like it's starting to look very intentional. Um, but then if you call that out, then it's like, "Oh, you're crazy. No, that's not intentional. Why would they do that to us?" I don't know. Since when has the government ever helped anybody? But that's another story. Yeah, exactly. It's been years in the making. Never did I want to believe our government's so corrupt. I always thought there was some corruption in the government, but it never occurred to me that it was everywhere and everything, and that everybody's bad, basically. And I think sometimes there's a few good people sitting in there, but honestly, I think both sides are just corrupt and evil, and they just care about themselves. They don't care about the common people like us. So I'm with you. And I think, when we talk about being black pilled, it's hard for a lot of people to come to terms with that and to realize that it's happening, because I think it's pretty undeniable. And once you do realize it, some people do find that very depressing. But I'm like, you know what? It's better to be aware and awake to what's going on, because that's the best way you can defend yourself and protect yourself, is with, arming yourself with knowledge in these situations. Um, so, yeah, I heard about Bill Gates making, yep. Um, this is like, and also, okay, if you haven't heard this, it's going to sound like a conspiracy, but you can go look this up in the news. Bill Gates is is working on, or has figured out, his own formula, basically. And it's convenient because we have the formula shortage, and at the same time Bill Gates has figured out, oh look, we have our own better formula that's like that's like real breast milk. At the same time there's a formula shortage. So it's, when you start looking at it, it's like all the corporations being in bed with each other for likely nefarious means. So what was your ethnicities diet with hunters and gatherers? It probably represents how one's body adapted for 99% of your genetic history, and is very different from the food supply today. Very true. That's why a lot of people have gone back to ancestral eating. Like, okay, what's the general region of the planet that your ancestors are from, and how did they eat? Because genetically, that's what your body's programmed to eat. That's why, like, not everybody can eat the same. That's why, some diets or styles of eating, are amazing for some people, and they look amazing and they're all ripped and fantastic. And then here, no, this other person eats the same exact way, is strict, but they have a high percentage of body fat, or they're having health issues because, you know, I guess, like, the people whose ancestry, like, let's say, is in Southern Asia, their body didn't adapt to eat the way that somebody in the British Isles, who their ancestry is from there, um, like it's, I guess, hold on, I'm losing my train of thought, but you know what I mean, like the Southern Asian genetics probably aren't adapted to eat the same way Anglo-Saxon genetics eat, and vice versa. So no, it's so important finding out where your ancestors are from. I wouldn't do the DNA test, just having a general idea. Like I know my mother and her ancestors are Mediterranean, and my dad and his ancestors are Anglo-Saxon. So I have an idea of that part of Western Europe. I know how people eat. My body does seem to like eating Mediterranean style. So it's amazing what becomes a part of us. And that's why I say not everybody can eat the same. Oh, it's over 20 food plants now? Yeah. What coincidence is that? That's not a coincidence. That's intentional. Yeah. It's disturbing. Yeah. Okay. In Jurassic Park, the book, Dodgson was experimenting on developing nations with illnesses. Yep. That's how we talk about. Remember, we've spoken about sci-fi. It sci-fi awakens us to things that are going on, basically. It awakens our brains, or somebody's, hinting at what's going on, or maybe it's predictive programming, but sci-fi usually follows what's going on. If you haven't seen on my Twitter, I posted some clips from the X-Files. If you haven't seen them yet, go check them out. Same exact thing. There were 2 revival seasons of the X-Files, really describe what's gone on these past few years. So there's something to it. Yeah, exactly. It's how you take down America from the inside. Oh, there's this amazing Lincoln quote, and oh, my dad has it hanging in his office. I can't remember it word for word, but the gist of it is, from whence shall we expect the approach of danger? Shall some transatlantic giant step over the ocean and come and get us? Like, is our destruction going to come from someone else? Is it going to come from the outside? And Lincoln says, no. No country could ever defeat us. If we're going to go down, it's our nation's going to die by suicide, that our nation is going to die from the inside. And if you look at how quickly things are collapsing, it looks orchestrated, and it looks like a destruction from the inside. So like Lincoln said, you know what? The danger's not going to come from outside. The danger's going to come from inside. And it seems to be coming true now. So manufactured consent plus manufactured waste equals our economy. It's a good way to put it. I have to think further on that, but I'm liking what I'm hearing. Yeah. So the bad guys are following a spirit. You know what? There's a lot of thought. I mean, there's a lot of people that think that the elite are taking orders from somebody, and that it's from darkness. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised, especially when you look at some of their rituals. It seems a little cultic and ritualistic. But yeah, knowledge is empower. Knowledge is power. It's empowering. And they want you kept in the dark. Because think about like how tyrants in history, one of the ways that they stay in power is through censorship. They hide knowledge from people because when you know, that makes you powerful. You can overcome them. Knowledge is empowering, and they don't want that. So look at like how things are constantly censored at every turn, which should tell you, you know what, go grab that knowledge, go study up, to go grab that wisdom, because it helps it helps protect you. It helps put you in a better place. So, um, yeah. And then back to preparing for abundance and preparing for hard times, it's all linked. So, when you want to spiritually prepare for abundance, even when you have less, you still want to give. So, even in hard times, you still want to find ways to be charitable. So make sure when you are storing things up, when you're getting things ready for yourself, keep in mind that you might have to give things out to people, that you might want to be charitable. Like I have a couple of things that it's like, okay, I'm not super into this, but I know people that are, and if I need to help them, this food item, I think this will be a really good thing to have. Or I'm allergic to this, but I know a lot of people can benefit from this. It's good to keep those things on hand. Yeah, the corruption goes to the core and is a nation killer because they don't want sovereignty. They don't want individual nations taking care of themselves and and standing up for themselves because they want complete control. And what way do you do that? By breaking down national borders, which is interesting because you remember that thing that got voted on a few weeks ago, where it was the US was going to hand over their sovereignty to the WHO, that if something comes in, the US doesn't, like if we have another pandemic, the US doesn't call the shots, the WHO can come in and completely govern. And it was scary because it looked like we were going in that direction. But you know what? Some countries stepped up and pushed up and said, absolutely not. You are not taking our sovereignty. No. And the only reason that this didn't pass was because these developing nations, like we talked about, the developing nations who put their foot down and kicked out these organizations that were hurting them, these developing nations said, absolutely not. You are not going to come in and govern us. They're like, you know what, we're smarter than that. So we have been saved. The world has been saved by these countries that have dealt with people coming in and using them. And because they've had that experience, they put their foot down and said, absolutely not. So we really have to thank the developing world for saving us in that. And I just ordered a book about it. It's really interesting sounding. It's called Target Africa, Ideological Neocolonialism. And it's talking about how Western countries come in, and even though like traditional colonialism is gone, but when these organizations come in under the guise of charity and start manipulating these countries and using them and imposing their ideas on them, it becomes a form of colonialism. So it's really, really interesting read that I'm really excited to read about. It hasn't come yet. I'm behind. Thanks to everybody for just being so discussing this. I'm very happy to discuss all this with you. I thought this was just going to be a quick chat, but I'm having a good time here. So sorry if I'm skipping some of this. I just want to make sure that I catch up. But you guys are saying such awesome things. Yes. Okay. So that big greenhouse. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this big greenhouse. And the reason why I'm saying, oh my gosh, I'll get to in a second. So it's called App Harvest Greenhouse, and it is in Moorhead, Kentucky. And Moorhead, Kentucky is where my dad is from. And it's just mind blowing to think that this is coming out of Moorhead. But Moorhead has some interesting things have happened there. There was this big UFO sighting that happened there, and it backs up against Daniel Boone National Forest. And there's a lot of nefarious and occultic things that happen in the Daniel Boone National Forest. And Kentucky is known for a lot of, because you have isolation and mountains and stuff. You do have a lot of occultic things happening in secluded areas. And so it's interesting that a state that has a lot of this going on also has this App Harvest Greenhouse, which doesn't seem like a very good thing for humanity. It has it going on, kind of like how Jekyll Island had that occultic stuff happening, and then they established the Federal Reserve there. I think it's really interesting. But Moorhead, Kentucky isn't an isolated place. It's a big college town. There's a lot that goes on in Moorhead, so that's why they decided to put that there. But I just think it's interesting that they should put it in Kentucky because of those things I just mentioned. Oh, Irish and oh, thank you. You like my combination? Yeah, that's what my dad used to joke. He's like, you're half wasp and half Mediterranean. That we're not like those uppity Greenwich wasp. We're Kentucky wasp. New Jurassic World. Oh, it was really meh. I really wanted to see that opening day. But I don't like being in crowded theaters anymore. So I'm like, I'm gonna wait and go like to a really early showing. And not because I'm paranoid about the typical things or people are paranoid. I have some other things I've thought about lately that make me not want to go into places, but there's another story for another time. So So this is empowering for those with weak knees. The seamless corruption suggests that rules or laws should be carefully considered. They say I'm not legitimate. Trust me, no one's on the legit. Yeah, and I think in terms of no one being on the legit, it's amazing how much the curtain has been pulled back in the past few years, and so what Al Capone's saying, probably during his time, it kind of seemed like a shocking thing. Oh, no one's on the legit, but now it's just becoming clearer and clearer. And yeah, for those with weak knees, a seamless corruption suggests that rules and laws should be carefully considered. Yeah, exactly. They want you falling into these rules and laws. I mean, look at all the weak knees that fell into all those other rules the past few years. And like, listen, if that's your thing and you want to do that, go for it. Everybody has their reasons. And I even had my reasons for following certain things that I did. And but like nobody should be forced to, in terms of rules and laws, So I take a more libertarian stance to rules and what we should do with it. So but it's true but the fact that they feel like they can impose rules and laws on us are because of the weak needs, because of the weak people. So it always made me very angry lately when I see people so compliant, because I'm like, your compliance hurts everyone, because you make it so much harder for everyone else because they can see what they can get away with control wise. You just show them that it's a-okay. But I'll stay off that topic for now. But I think you guys can see where I'm coming from in my veiled way of saying things. Hold on. Oh, the Lone Gunman episode. Oh, was that the one that spun off the Lone Gunman miniseries? But yeah, I want to revisit X-Files, especially now, because like watching it a few years ago, there's things that open your eyes, but now watching things now that the curtains have been pulled back, now more things are making sense in that show. Man, was somebody an insider on that show? Because like, what the heck? Okay, so we're talking about, omnivore. Oh, let's see, a little bit of a plant-based versus meat-based versus omnivore debate. And it is now said that Adam and Eve were originally plant eaters. Yeah, I'm with you on that, because our bodies were made to be plant eaters. But eating meat came as a part of the fall. So it's not against the Bible to eat meat. It was once Adam and Eve fell into sin, that's where eating meat came from, and we're allowed to. Within, certain extents, there, depending whether you follow kosher law or not. But like I said, I mean, there are good things to come out of plant-based diets, and there's a lot of good things to come out of meat-based diets. So, but I won't get into that. Like I said, like, it's weird. It's so hard to because I'm like, I feel so good lately, and my brain feels so good with all these animal products in my system. But then I look at myself when I was vegan. I'm like, I looked better as a vegan. But I'll leave it at that. Oh, okay, Maddie's also live. You know what? I never know who's live and, at what time, and I'm like, "Am I stepping on toes?" But I just kinda go with it. I'm like, "Whatever," whatever happens, happens. There's so many streams to plan around, I don't know what to do. Um, oh, for over 2 hours. Oh, I get what you're saying. Okay. That there's a bunch of traffic there. You will own nothing and be happy. Anyone doesn't know where that saying is from? That's from the WEF, the World Economic Forum, that's holding a little too much power over us. That's pretty much their goals. You will own nothing and be happy. They want control. They want, they want limited ownership, and everything is kind of falling into that. Katie Hopkins has a really good summary about what's going on in that regard. I know a lot of people are torn on Katie Hopkins, but if you go to her Instagram and see the video that she posted, it's making a lot of sense. She's talking about, what's behind gas shortages, what's behind the car shortages. And, it's maybe a 2.5 minute video, and references the WEF, because she's like basically saying, don't buy what they're saying. This is tied to the WEF's goals of basically you will own nothing and be happy. Highly recommend following her, because, whatever you've heard about her, there's just a lot of hate. She puts a lot of good info out there. So now you've officially watched Every movie at a couple theaters here. Oh, I used to do that, go to all the theaters and watch every movie. I miss those times. It was expensive though, but it was good. Oh shoot, I'm so far behind. Okay, I'm going. I'm gonna catch up fast. Um, yes, yes. Thank you so much, Ada. In hard times, adopt an elderly neighbor and look out for them. Even in not hard times, this is always so good to do. But especially when times are hard, you know, people like the elderly have a lot more trouble handling that because a lot of them are on a limited budget, or even if there's food gone from the shelves, they can't like be in the mad rush of people, they can't potentially get knocked over in a rush in a grocery store. So a lot of times, you know, old people will be going after the rush and finding the shelves empty. So important to adopt somebody like that and take care of them. Um, and they'll be happy for the company too if they don't have family around. So thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. Hey, Hex Luther. Hey, everybody. Nice to see all you guys coming in. So sorry, I'm just catching up on these comments. Strange vibes in Moorhead. Yeah, definitely some strange vibes in Moorhead. I got to find the article about the supposed UFO landing in Moorhead. It's also a college town, but I don't think it was drunk college kids that witnessed that. So Oh, Justified had a good couple of seasons and is set in Kentucky. I'm sure there's a lot of wild stories, Kentucky storylines that you can put in a series. Um, and I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about happening there. It's a very mysterious state. My dad's got some wild stories too about that. So yeah, thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, because for the most part, I'm like, I'm just gonna go when I want to go. But then on the other hand, I'm like, are people gonna be offended like I'm stepping on toes? But I figure it's all right. People catch replays, they can catch my replay after or vice versa. But yeah. Let's flip it to you will own nothing and be happy. Yeah, you'll own Hex and be happy. Yes. Um, they had compliances by count. Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah. I put that up on the screen so I don't get blocked by YouTube, but I see what you're saying, Bit Finesse. So yeah, so to kind of wrap up sorry, I'm looking at this black spot on my screen. That's there. I smashed my phone screen and apparently I think I messed up my camera sensor too, which is kind of like upsetting because it's 329 to fix my screen, so I won't have that for a while. And now I'm like, are they gonna even fix the sensor? Yeah, I've never done that before, but yeah, it's another story. Anyway, who cares about their toes? For a second, I'm like, is this a foot fetish joke? I'm like, oh yeah, because I talked about stepping on toes. Yeah. Um, Every morning, every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb I have given you all things. Genesis 9:3. So Genesis 9:3 is after the fall, right? Where people were allowed to eat meat. So yeah, and like I said, there's just certain confines for meat eating if you follow kosher law. But yeah, gosh, there's a lot of meat and plant stuff we can talk about. But yeah, I'm still confused over for what I'm doing. I'm gonna try liver. I'm sorry, it is now. I think I'm sure you don't want to hear that, but I just want to try and see what happens if I eat some liver. It's supposed to be super healthy for you, but all that copper scares me. But it's another topic for another time. But yeah, so I just to wrap things up. So like we said, spiritual preparation for abundance. It is about mindset. Adopt the mindset when you have less so that you will be in that mindset when you have money. Be charitable when you even have nothing to be charitable with, and you're even just charitable in your interactions and your time, and that's going to carry over to when you have an abundance. Because if you don't establish that, then you're not going to be like that when you're rich. And like we said, there's a ton of rich people you can look at and see. And the same thing carries over to when things are bad. Because charity is going to be important as we get into hard times, as we get into food scarcity. Like Ada said, adopt your elderly neighbor. You're going to need to be able to give food most likely out to people. That's really what people are going to be asking for. Like I remember my grandfather talking about World War II in Italy, and him saying that people would come to their door knocking and looking for food, and even though they hardly had anything, his mother would still hand out some bread or hand out something. Like it's so important to have that mindset. And when you get into hard times, the having that solid foundation is going to carry you through the hard times. And you know, even if you're not a Christian, you know, finding some sort of solid foundation, finding something, some sort of code of ethics, some sort of values, something that you can hold on to is going to make all the difference in the hard times, especially like when it comes to just mentally not being down. Having something to focus on, having something to cling to is going to help carry you through. So if you want to look at it like moving back to the Christian's perspective, what I can offer is just get right with God. If you're like on the edge of the maybe I will, maybe I won't, I would say just do it. Just explore your faith and just see what happens. Because in the Bible it says knock and the door will be open to you. Seek and you will find. Like, you might feel like you're getting silence initially, but he's going to meet you there. If you reach out, if you make the effort, then God's going to meet you where you're at. And if you don't know how to start and what to do, easiest thing to do is pray. And it doesn't mean like you got to say some sort of memorized prayer, or like the Catholic prayers on the rosary where you say the same thing every time. Prayer is as simple as a conversation. It doesn't need to be long and go on and on. Just talk to God, talk to Jesus, like just like we're talking here. Just chat back and forth and be like, hey, I have these concerns, or hey, thank you for doing that. That's the easiest way to start. And if you want to get into the Bible, if you download the Bible app from the App Store, you can go through. I mean, you don't even have to buy a Bible. You can just for free, you can go through and read the Bible in there. I have, the physical copy of the Bible, and I have the Bible app. And lately I find myself using the Bible app because sometimes the Bible seems intimidating to read, and it's hard to understand. But as a way to kind of really absorb it and really focus, what I do is I like to just read a chapter a day. And I like doing it on the Bible app because the Bible app also has an audiobook, and it'll read it to you. So I hit play for that chapter. So I have that chapter being read to me. And as it's being read to me, I'll read along with it because it really helps to put it in my brain. And because you're not reading like a really long section, you can really kind of meditate on it in your heart and think about it all day and see, what that means, what God is trying to say, what he's trying to ask you to do in your life, or how he's trying to ask you to live. And really simple prayer that you can say at the beginning is like, Jesus, just speak to me through this. Show me what you want me to say. And I feel like that makes a huge difference in my life, and it changes your mindset. You just feel good. And again, I'm not trying to like force faith on anybody, but I just want to show you what works for me, because I think part of being prepared for what's coming, spiritual preparation, is a big part of that. And I'll get to the chat in a second. I just want to finish these thoughts before I forget them. Um, and um, and sorry, I want to. Oh yeah, and then lastly, be in community with other people, with other like-minded people who share your faith. If you want to start that faith journey, it makes such a huge difference. Whether you're in like-minded community with people online or in person, really the best way is to be there in person in church with other people, because God asks us to be in community with other people like that. And keep in mind that people aren't perfect. You're not going to find perfect people in the church. And if somebody does something that offends you, that's not a reflection on God or on church in general. That's just our humanity. You're not going to like everyone. So keep in mind that, that comes from people. Because there are people who get turned off and be like, oh, I'll never go to church again because this person wronged me. But you know what? Like you said, church isn't for perfect people. If you were perfect, you wouldn't need to go to church. It's for imperfect people. It's a community of imperfect people. So just keep that in mind. So that's just my thing. That's what I believe. And I totally encourage anyone to explore that too. that's been my faith my whole life, and it's really truly a solid rock in my life. And is the lens I view life through, and yeah, and my my North Star in my life. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out through DM. You guys all have my Twitter. So I'm gonna now catch up on these comments. So Oh, you trolled. Thank you. Oh, and I saw that tweet you sent, that hostile complimentary tweet. Thank you. I wasn't sure how to respond to that, but it made me smile. So thank you. Um, so oh, and you triggered him lately? You guys like bothering Maddie, don't you? Um tuned in for some philosophical insight, and the first thing you hear, sorry, you came late. I did start off the bat with faith stuff, and then we went in and out of the comments and discussion, and I just came back for it. But yeah, the because also one of the things that maybe I'm sure you've noticed is my brain is all over the place. So I thought about eating liver in that moment, so I had to say it. So yeah, but thank you, Toby One, for your patience and for not clicking right out of there as soon as I said that. I appreciate that. Um, so yep, yeah. Oh, so maybe that means I should try that liver with fava beans, but I want to try the dried liver crisp. All right, I'm back. All right. I clicked something and everything disappeared. Sorry. Yeah. So let me find where I'm at. All right. Oh, hello, Clarice. There we go. Um, okay, yeah, I hear you. So yeah, I kind of started off the this live with, like, I know not everyone's going to agree with me. Not everybody's on the same page in terms of Christianity and my faith, but I think, we have the ability to find common ground, Like, even if you're an atheist, we agree on the fact that I am sure we agree on the fact that it's important to be charitable, to help other people, and as we get into hard times, um to have that heart of charity and good deeds. So I think there's a lot we can all agree on, whether we share the same faith or not. I just, that's a part of me, and the lens that I view things through. So yeah, so like I said, we're all gonna have different opinions on it, but I appreciate the fact that you guys are just, even though you don't agree, I appreciate the fact that you're here and discussing it with me. So thank you. Um, truly. You guys are funny. Okay. Um, so sorry, I'm almost caught up. Sorry. Just trying to find my way. Oh yeah, yeah. Hostile tweet. I'll DM you. Don't worry. Um, yeah, I rugged myself somehow. There we go. Okay. I think I'm at the end of this. Yeah, having faith helps people on the path to enlightenment. The theme of truth, the way and the light reverberates in all humanity. Yeah, exactly. That's why I think, like I said, we can all find common ground. Whether if you're an atheist and I'm whoever I'm talking to, if anybody here is an atheist and I'm a person of faith, you know what? We have more similarities just in our humanity and things we believe in, I think, than differences. So, um, yeah, totally. Yeah. So I'm all yeah. I like I said, I appreciate you guys being here, even if it's a different opinion, that you're willing to sit through and listen. And I am, I'm happy to hear what you guys think too. So alrighty. I think that wraps it up. I can't think of anything else, but this is kind of a fun series. If you guys are into it, we'll continue it and talk about hit some different topics on preparedness. I think preparedness is fascinating. It's I know that people who like to be prepared kind of got like these my do not disturb came off. Got these this crazy reputation. But, like, I think we're now seeing, though, the value of being prepared, and I'm not talking, like, be in your castle with your turrets and everything and isolate yourself completely with your 20 years worth of food, but it's important to make your way towards self-sufficiency, because when you're not self-sufficient, it makes it easy for people to control you. So, yeah, I think this I enjoy talking about preparedness and preparedness topics, even though I'm not as prepared as I'd like to be. I find it fascinating, so I'd love to hit different topics every week. I know I made the first video and I disappeared for a few weeks, but I should be back now. Yeah, so thanks guys for being here. And yeah, I can't remember what else I was gonna say. So I'll talk to you all soon. And yeah, DM me any thoughts, or if anyone wants to be on a stream sometime, let me know. I am game for it. And yeah, build a moat with gators and piranhas. You know what? If you can, go for it, right? Protect your family with those gators in there. Um, I think I'm trying to recall where you live. Will gators survive in that climate? If not, then maybe you can put a pit of, like, what's something else deadly? Bears? A bear pit? My brain is now shutting off. I can't even think or make sentences anymore. So yeah, so thanks guys for being here, and you all have a great night. Yeah, the chat was so lit tonight, and thank you all for the compliments. Yeah, I have so many amazing people in the chat tonight. All you guys are amazing and kind and intelligent, so thank you. Yeah, be spiritually prepared and you will always get what you need. And also, let me just end it with this. In terms of spiritual preparedness, because some people are like, you know what? I don't have to be prepared because God's going to carry me through and he's going to protect me and he's going to provide everything I need. You know what? Yes, God provides, but God also gave you a brain, and the Bible talks about, the ant storing up and being ready. So there is nothing wrong with being prepared physically. So, God gave you a brain, use it, be awake, be ready. And also, in terms of being spiritually prepared, correct your mindset now, because whether things go really good, it's going to benefit you, or if things go bad, then you'll be able to withstand the hard times. So make that spiritual correction now, and it's going to be invaluable. So yeah, thanks again, guys. You have a good night. Saturday night again, High Strangeness live stream. Have no idea what we're doing for that. But yeah, I'd love to see you guys there if you're free. So you all have a good night. See, the chat is lit. I can't stop reading the chat. So it's strange to you that people think prepping is for loony birds. That was my grandparents' everyday life. Yes, this is a common theme all over the world that people have done for like most of human history. Being prepared. Actually, this is probably like the only time in human history where people are like, no, forget it. We can just go to the grocery store the same day. We don't need to be prepared. So this is not odd. This is like normal human behavior. So we're just getting back to what we should be getting back to. Yeah, God helps those who help themselves. A lot of people attribute that to a Bible. That's not a Bible verse. And I know you're not saying it is. I'm just saying in general, but but that's the concept of it. Like God gave you a brain. Yeah, he's gonna provide for you in some ways, but he also wants you to do things for yourself. So just like, a good parent, parents will help you out, and love you, hopefully, if you have good parents, but they expect you to do things on your own too. They expect you to think for yourselves. So he giveth and taketh away. So don't lean on that Indian give it too much. You're funny. Oh shoot. Oh, you're well. Oh, am I gonna get myself in trouble for repeating that? Okay. Sometimes, yeah. So brushing your teeth is also preparation. Yeah, exactly. So like, but it's that whole demonizing of preparedness, and then using words like calling people a crazy prepper. Having extra cans in your pantry is not being a prepper. But that's also they had how there's been certain definitions of like domestic terrorist, and part of that was that they wanted to define domestic terrorists, the people who have extra food on hand. So they, which just goes to show that they don't want you ready because they want you relying on them. So that also when things get really bad, you get desperate and you're willing to accept whatever they want to give, like look up the Holodomor, look up the Russian Revolution. They made people really desperate during that time so that they would cling to a certain government. So, yeah, whoever controls the food controls the people. And if you look, there seems to be a very big battle for the food. Like we're saying, 20 plants burning down, Bill Gates buying up the farmland, China buying up the farmland. There's a concerted effort. And that app farm too, there's a concerted effort for it. Why is everybody so desperate to control the food? Like everybody, like even if you don't think like we do, any regular person should take a step back and be looking at this and saying that something's not right here. And but nobody thinks like that anymore. Nobody thinks logically anymore. But it's true. Whoever controls the food controls the people. Because if you are hungry, if you are desperate, if your children are starving, you will do anything. If the government says jump, you will say how high. So they know, and they know that. So this is what they're slowly bringing us towards. So yeah, hey Gen Hex, nice to see you. Let me see where else, where I am, sorry, in the live chat. Alrighty, well, you guys have a good night. It was fun chatting with you guys. Look, right as I'm logging off, now the viewers are going up. I guess Maddie ended his stream, but it looks like I've been going on now for an hour and 45 minutes. I thought this was going to be a quick half-hour conversation, but I had a good time with you guys tonight. So thank you again. Yeah, and whoever controls the books. Wait, where are we? 2. And what was the first controlled book? Yeah, interesting. Yeah, you bring up a good point. Whoever controls knowledge, if you withhold knowledge, it's a way to control people. What was the first controlled book? And I'm guessing that's religious books, the Bible. Like they've always been interpreted in certain ways to suit certain things. That's why some people love the King James version, but I'm like, I don't like the King James version of the Bible because that was a king commissioning his version of the Bible. So yeah, that's a different story. So guys, grow sprouts in jars, broccoli sprouts, fenugreek, all sprouts, veggie on the go, fiber solved, jars, strainer lids, and seeds. Get them. Yeah. Okay. So that was the lid with the screen. Okay. The strainer lid. Okay. Remember I was like trying to describe it. I'm like, you screw on this thing on the top. Yeah. Yeah. So here's like we said before, here's a way to pack a big nutritional punch in a small package. So store up your seeds, store up your glass jars and your strainer lids and everything to be able to grow sprouts. This is so important. And seeds, if you store properly, should store for a long time too. Yeah, information control, especially like information control has always been prevalent, but especially if you look at now the censors and that Ministry of disinformation or whatever, concerted effort to control knowledge and information, and everybody should be questioning that, but everybody's got their fluoride stairs and their fluoride brain and just accept it as it is. Yeah, so yeah, I'd love to do panels or something like that. Yeah, like totally. If anybody ever wants to participate in anything, DM me, because I can never think of who to bring on because I'm still like relatively new to meeting people in this community. So I don't know who would be into this. But yeah, if anyone ever wants to be in a panel or anything, you let me know. That sounds like a lot of fun. I would love that. So thank you for that idea. Thank you, Maddie, for coming. I heard you had a big stream tonight. So I will have to check that out after this. And yep, Saturday night is the High Strangeness live stream. So thank you, Crow 5555. I keep wanting to read that as Kraus with a bunch of S's, Kraus. But yeah, cows eat all the greens you need. There's some people that think that it's a lot healthier because they're processing it before you. Like I said, my brain feels so much better that I'm eating so much more meat and animal products, but it's totally freaking my mother out. She's like, because my mother's more plant-based. So I don't know. I go back and forth on the plant-based now. Yeah. So, oh, it is Kraus. Okay. But you just put the bunch of the fives after that. Maddie's purposely ignoring you, it looks like. Okay, guys, you have a good night. All right. See you soon. Bye.